May I invite all three speakers after the coffee water break to come to the table here?
Now?
Yeah, because we have a question and answers session. We have a bit more time than at the previous session. Yeah. Huh? I don't hear you.
Can I leave you or shall I join?
You want to join? No, please. The three is enough. Because we have 30 minutes. All right. But there may be also questions to you, because there is quite a relation between the first conclusion by Bastek after the cultural relations at the bottom and the last presentation, because there was an advice. There was a very clear advice. Focus on intercultural communication, in particular among the nations. But in your last slide, you did show that that also is a hell of a job.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah, and that's why we are all engaged in this, of course.
Yeah.
We try to change things.
Yeah. I give the floor up to you now right away. Which questions could we see? And let me first see three names, three hands, and then we join, yeah? So that not after one question I give right away the floor to somebody. So you are number one, Kaska is number two, and on this side, somebody? Yeah, please. So 1, 2, 3, yes? And then we combine the questions and then we answer. Yeah, please. And the first time that you're speaking, you mention your name.
I will. You know it.
Mr. Evers? Yeah.
My name is Daan Evers. I live partly...
We don't hear you. There should be a better mic. Or you have to push the button.
I'll speak in it. Is it better now? Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Daan Evers. I live partially in Belgrade, and I have quite a few footprints in the Balkans and a lot of cycling kilometers. I was thinking of commenting on the Sultans Trail issues, but I'm tempted to comment more politically on some of the stuff we heard, particularly one issue. I have the feeling that we are too much in a doom and gloom mood, particularly this prevalence of ultra-right extremism in the Balkans, and particularly in Serbia. I think this is slightly exaggerated. It is, I think, the result of these right-wing elements and groups being very vocal and being very supportive by a very biased right-wing press. I don't think it is so much shared by the majority of the population. I think in the case of Serbia, there is a much more problem. The problem is greater one of apathy. People have become so disillusioned about prospects, about the European accession, and the economic deterioration over the past few years, that they have sort of turned off and giving way and giving space to these right-wing extremist militants. So I feel that we should be careful here not to generalize and see this as a massive right-wing threat. Serbia is, again, and that is true for the others, is very ambivalent. On the surface, there is this pro-Russian evidence, but if you look de facto on the ground, what is happening is that every Serb wants to go to Europe for holidays, for studies, for jobs. They never go east. They always go west. And even in Belgrade, you saw the mural of Putin. But I've seen murals, little ones, smaller, I admit, but they say Putin is a murderer. So again, there is this two sides of the issue. I will conclude. Most important, I feel, is the economics. If the economics helps to overcome these ethnic rivalries, all this, the competition that you see on the ground. So economics, much more than art, sorry to my neighbor, but is the really basic issue to change the issue for the better.
Thank you. That's analysis and also conclusion. Now, Klaske Vos, and you come back to that later. Yeah, Klaske Vos.
Hi, yes. I was also thinking, how do I bring this back to the Sultans Trail? Some of the
Not as quick as your presentation.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah. But what triggered me, in particularly in your presentation, Niké, and the last one of Aleksandra, is this friction that seems to be in place regarding the ambition of these routes, of these programs, of all these initiatives, and the local tendencies that are taking place, which are closely interrelated with European narratives, for example, about Christianity, or about what is the shared heritage of Europe, or about fascism, what Niké was mentioning too, while locally you see, I guess with the fascist talk, that the region is scattered by battlefields and complexities of what the Second World War is, for example, or with the Ottoman heritage. I mean, in Bosnia, Turkey invests in cultural memory. So you see a lot of
600 projects in 5 years. So
you
can imagine how large. Yeah.
I'm not sure, you probably cannot answer this question, but for me, the question is, of course, how to change this, both on a sort of European level as well as through local initiatives that are happening, because the heritage, the memory places are there.
Yes.
Thank you. Later, just a second. All right, I saw a hand. Okay, yeah, please.
I'm Ton Roos, former secretary of Sultanstrail. I hear from the European standpoint always the international approach. And I have the feeling, I've been often also in Serbia, when you also listen to their complaints of them, and the feelings of them, then they much more agree and want to discuss it. And we give now the feeling Europe has a meaning and the nationals has a meaning. But also both meanings are important, I think.
Okay, thank you. Now, the first question is both to you and also to you. You are too pessimistic, yeah? And on the ground there is much more going around, as moreover you have disregarded the economic faction. That's a summary of the question, position. Sorry, Harvard, but that's a summary. Now, both of you please react.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Sure. I would like to respond because I don't think I was pessimistic. I was realistic in the sense that that I really wanted to point out what people are feeling and thinking on the ground. I've also spoken to people in Belgrade about issues, and I think the tendency is that people are afraid of a war. You know, particularly what happened to Ukraine. So that was a tendency which you also saw during election time. I was actually had the opportunity to go there as an election observer, and I noticed also, for example, huge billboards from the extreme right parties. You know, Russia and Serbia are brothers forever, but this is not it's not a 50-50, and that's what I wanted to show with, so we have to think about international politics or European politics, where the Serbian government has also to deal with Europe, but they also have to deal with Russia, and that really has to do so with the historical cultural background, with the energy dependency issues, but you also need to look into the public opinion, and that's what I wanted to show, that the public opinion, people are also, before last year, so before this year, most people, it was always a percentage above 50 in favor of EU membership. So my statement is also that the EU has failed in this sense. And also, if you look at economic, there are a lot of economic initiatives in Serbia, also through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands, also through via the European Union. But once again, I don't want to portray a pessimistic view, but a realistic view, and this is something that we need to think of if we go back to European Union. You know, what can the European Union do? What can, for example, the Netherlands do to have this image changed? So that was not a pessimistic but realistic view.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Niké Wentholt.
Sure, thank you. No, thanks very much for that comment, because I think it allows me to correct something that may have sort of risen, not that I wanted it, because I completely agree with you. Right-wing extremism is not a majority point of view at all. And I don't blame people at all, but I do blame their leaders. You know, it's not the radical party that has the majority in Serbian parliament, right? It's not that people actually vote for extremist right-wing parties in majority. But the Progressive Party does have a majority. And I think the Progressive Party, it's, spoiler, not really progressive, is very dangerous, because it has been, you know, and I think Natasja showed that really well, in between this pro-EU, pro-Russia policy all the time. And, you know, even more than Serbian leaders, I blame the EU for allowing that. And I think in that sense, I'm not at all afraid of ordinary Serbian citizens and their right-wing feelings, like not at all. As I think we have seen, there's so much like grassroots activism that is going the other way, you know, or like the anti-fascist movement is very big. But I am very wary of the leaders. And in that sense, I think economy is indeed the right way to look at it. But I think continuing to work together with the mainstream leaders and with the sort of mainstream ideas to improve economy is not really working, because we are also seeing that corruption is rising together with these autocratic leaders.
Are social media playing an important role in this? You also speak about relations between extremism in Serbia and in the Netherlands, for instance, but it will be more widespread, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not my area of specialism, and feel free to add, but I know of colleagues who've done research into, you know, platforms like 4chan and 8chan, I don't know what they're called. And but then again, you know, it's not like we're speaking of hundreds of thousands of people doing that, right? But it can be very vile and very potent if only a couple of people are doing that, who are then normalized through mainstream leaders. And again, the same thing is happening in the Netherlands, right? This is not something unique to the Western Balkans. We also have people in parliament who are, let's say, amplifying these stories.
Thank you. Now the question by Klaske Vos for you.
Okay, for me. Okay, considering opportunistic feelings about development in such a problematic area with a heritage that is contested, that bears large problems in nationalist aspects of living, I am really positive, because, as you said, lots of initiatives in that way go top bottom areas, because people with that are more in cultural sector are open to cooperation, international cooperations, and they are getting on this train. So different activities are happening in Serbia, in Bulgaria, in the domain of revitalizing different cultural aspects. You have mentioned, focused on the socialist movement. You used this concrete utopia term. This is also the name of the MoMA architectural large event that was organized a few years ago in New York, that was trying to freshen up the cultural aspect of Yugoslav brutalist architecture. It was a large event, and after that, the foreign interest for this specific artistic era of Yugoslavia, about Yugoslav wars, the socialist movement, how these people, Yugoslavia was economically strong, and it grew on. Of course, after desalvation, everything fell down, which is the problem which caused by nationalist movements, radical movements. There are always two partners in the conflict. So one-side stories are always problem when you present something. So there are underground, more deeper roots to these conflicts going to the deep, deep pasts in the Balkans. So positive, tourism is economic field that whenever it comes in local community, it's always nurtured and everybody wants to hop on. So this is...
Sir, thank you. I saw your position more as a comment than as a question. Is that correct? Maybe I did not understand then the question character of the comment. Please then repeat it.
I want to know.
And speak clearly, yeah, please, in the mic.
Okay. I think that also the people in the countries must understand that some of the fears they have, that we in Europe understand that. That is, I think, happening to us.
Yes, the fear of not knowing what to expect is the most, when you go to travel, if you don't know if the airline will go on, you are in fear. And if you know the area, if you have you have media attention, social medias creating the false images of the regions. So the Balkan region is actually a really heartwarmed hospitality region. It is having, bad image, and we have constant political problems and so on. When it comes to tourism, to culture, we really are really hospitable people. There are people who experience such activities through tourism, through walking, to going. And the first impression that always doesn't fit the image they are going in the first place. So when it comes to normal situations without politics involved so much, it is totally different story. So people need to know the both sides.
Would it then not be important to have a survey amongst the young population in the West, for instance in the Netherlands, about the image of the Balkan countries? And also the question to which extent that has changed. When I was young, everybody wanted to go to Yugoslavia for a vacation, and it was very popular. So what caused the change? Well, there are two comments. Maybe you could say something about that. Yeah, sure, Mr. Sakic. In order to relate it to the work of the organizing committee. Do you have the mic for Mr. Sakic? Yeah, okay. And then we go to a second round of 3 questions.
Yeah.
Please.
I agree with Aleksandra.
Yeah.
Because
louder.
Yeah, because when you travel to Serbia, for instance, most of people are afraid to go there because of the narrative in the media. Because in our foundation, we get a lot of questions about, is traveling in Serbia safe?
Yes,
because of everything.
Media.
But then people come back, and some of them write books like Hugo and Helene, and you see all the stories about Serbia are very positive. And my story was not different, because when I was walking alone to Turkey in 2009, and my mother is from Bulgaria, and she really don't want us to go to Bulgaria, but she was more afraid of the Serbia. She said, "Oh, take the plane from Hungary to Bulgaria." I said, "But you always thought Bulgaria was dangerous. Now is Serbia more dangerous?" But then you feel that you are also have a tension to go inside the country in the border areas. Mm-hmm. And I was there, and then you walk to Bachki Breg, and then people come, have a coffee, and then you feel safe.
Thank you.
But we have to make a survey under the Western Youth in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's the next step.
It's a task for Max and for the Academic Council.
Yeah, okay. All right. Second round of 3 questions. I first start looking here because I see many questions over there. Are there questions I do not want to overlook? Huh? First candidate. Yes, please. One. Then, sir, I saw your hand already before, and then I go behind you. I see somebody sitting over there who did not have, and you may have the possibility in a third round. It depends on the length of the questions and of the answers. So yes, please. So all questions briefly, so that there is a possibility for the others also to come in. Yes, and loudly, because it is difficult sometimes to understand.
Okay. I want to ask about the influence of two Turkish organizations on the Balkan area. And one is TİKA. Can someone tell me, has TİKA achieved anything in terms of breaking down prejudices in their work in preserving Ottoman monuments within the area? And the second is the Gülen movement. Has the fall of the Gülen movement had any effect on people's image of Turkey?
Thanks. Very clear questions, clear cut. Now, first you, sir. Yes. Mike.
Hugo Barbas. Short question. Should the Sultans Trail Foundation change its name in order to get more cooperation and more success?
Okay. You ask advice, yes? And then, not you, you come later. So, as I said, sir, behind you. Yeah? No, not you. I said behind you. Yeah? You are number one in the third round.
Thank you. My name is Harry Bruijnes, and I have a passion for walking cultural heritage routes. Last summer I walked from Sofia to Belgrade, and what struck me was the big difference with the Camino de Santiago, and specifically the hospitality of the monasteries. So I knocked on many doors because they are beautiful, especially in Serbia, but you can't sleep there. The door is closed in many cases. When I arrived in Belgrade, the restoration of the Sensava was to a large extent paid by Gazprom. Yeah. So my question is, what is the role of the church in this growing nationalism?
Thank you. Okay. First, the two questions were about the specific activities of two specific organizations. Is there anybody who could answer that? I think it could be you.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, TİKA organization is having a lot of projects recently in Serbia in particular, but in the whole region also, Bosnia, Albania, and so they are investing really in rehabilitation of Islamic at the first, and then Turkish legacy heritage sites as their activity in. This is also economic reasoning behind it, but also, of course, a political influence behind it. And governments of countries in the Balkan see prospects in doing something, gaining money for revitalizing something that they cannot revitalize in different in their regular financing plans and so on. So the economic reasoning is clearly behind the decision to allow TİKA to invest in the grounds of the Balkans countries. And the other movement I'm not aware, I'm sorry, okay. I cannot answer. Gülen.
Okay, so. Doesn't matter. All right. Now the second question we reserved for this afternoon at the final discussion, because it's quite a question which we can only reflect upon after having listened to all speakers. All right. Now the third question is about the role of the churches. Is one of you?
Well, it's not my also. Here it's also working. It's not my specialty, but I do know that they do have influence, but not to a large extent. For example, such as in Russia. In Russia, the church has really a huge impact on foreign policy. And in Serbia, what you see, for example, the Euro Parade or the Pride, which is going to be organized, you see that the church was against it. So you see there, and then from a governmental perspective, you see that the government condemns these actions. So I would not. I think it was in the past. It was the connection was more than it is now. I don't know whether Niké, you know more about. But that's what I know.
No, I think I agree with you. I mean, it's very important, I guess, not to fall into the trap of thinking there's, the government is the same as the church or something of the sort, right? That often happens when we talk about the Orthodox Church and the relations between Serbia and Russia, as if it's like one-on-one Christian Orthodoxy, not at all. I do think it's a question of use and abuse as well, so right-wing groups may use the church to justify, to legitimize, for example, their attacks during Pride, things like that. But it's definitely not one-to-one. And I think, these could be also places of positive change, right? Like there are examples of interreligious cooperation, for example, in the Western Balkans. So.
Thank you. Third round, 3 questions, brief. You are number 1, of course. Then I go to this side. Yes, you have asked a question already. Is there somebody else who would like to raise? No, then you are number 2. There's somebody in the back. Yes, sir. Yeah? You are number 3 then. All right. Please. Yeah. Name and speaking loudly.
Ik ben Jack Lomans. I'm Jack Lomans, and we are on a bicycle this year from Vienna to Belgrade. And what I found the sphere in Belgrade in Serbia was the Russian no, the Euro Union, they leave us alone. They bring us, they push us to the Russian and the Chinese, and they are very afraid that they are China has there the bridge to the future, and they have. I feel there a lot of not understanding the position that the European Union takes to Serbia, and I want to know how do you recognize that in the dragon, and how can you
Do you understand that feeling in the streets as he did accompany in relation to your overall presentation? Now, wait a minute. You first, yeah?
Thank you. I have traveled a lot in Serbia and in other Balkan countries, and about the non-desired heritage. The Ottoman heritage is in some countries desired. As we see in Hungary, Romania, they are very caring about it, and they
Croatia as well.
Croatia also. But when we look at the other countries, in Serbia, half desired, half not, but it's not very bad as in Greece or in Albania or in Bulgaria. But we can, suggestion for Sultanstrail, make about this heritage another symposium maybe next time to care about what is desired and what is not desired, because when we see on the field there is friendship between the peoples, because I traveled in Serbia, and there's nothing that the Serbians doesn't affect me or doesn't love me. Also on the political level, we see that on the political level, Serbia and Turkey are now agreeing, completely working together, and they are working very, very well. So we must look at this as a suggestion next time, how we can work for this out.
Okay, the fate of the non-desired heritage. That's one, number 2. And then I did recognize, yes, at the end. I think you first time now also, please first the name.
Hi, my name is Eric van den Boom. The phenomenon of fear was brought up somewhere there, and I really liked that. Because I think that when people are living in fear, they tend to want to have solutions. and they will, you know, be sensitive for manipulation and stuff. And I don't hear anything much about that in this conference till now. So wouldn't it be a good idea to really address, to really acknowledge fear in people as in individuals, fear in people as in groups of people, so that they can be met in that fear, from which a deeper solution can be created.
Thank you. Yeah. The fear factor, can you try to bring that together with your own views on extremism, nationalism, etc.? Yeah? I relate the question only to you. The question with regards to the undesired cultural, that's for you. And the first question is for you. Yeah, okay, please.
Yeah, thank you. Very brief. I think things like fear or, anger can go both ways, right? And what we're seeing now is that people capitalize on it. They want to instill, more extremist views, more right-wing views. But it could go the other way. And I think this is a call for more progressive civil society to step up and, to give them even more funding and to make sure that people's fear for something like a war can also result in organizing, in community organizing, in recognizing the hugely diverse history of this region, which is actually a history more of living together than of fighting each other. So I agree, like fear can go both ways, but I think at the moment we see it goes not in the right way.
Undesired heritage.
Okay, undesired heritage also has the issue of fear behind it. Of course. Yeah, fear of someone taking what's yours or fear of something that yours is not as much attractive as others. So that is a fear that exists among people. And fear of bad memories, actually. So the Ottoman heritage, as any heritage, brings the two stories behind it. So why it becomes unwanted? Because it brings the bad memories among locals in concerning how they were treated under Ottomans and so on. Same appears problematic when you have in Serbia, which was a Yugoslav country, we also abandoned socialist heritage, the Tito's remains and so on. It is really deeply rooted into the politics. So if you regard something to disturb you emotionally, the normal psychological reaction of people is to try to forget it. If you experience something negative, you try to forget it. And the best way to do it, just not neglect it, because it will demolish itself. And so on.
Just what we do in Holland with regard to slavery and colonialism.
Yes, that's the way. That's not the proper way. That's just the way that people. This is the easier way. You have, in order to accept something, you have to face the fear, like we did with COVID. Last year, no one traveled because of the fear of potential sickness. Now the story is different when you have tourists traveling everywhere. And it's also the thing how psychology of regions exists. Serbian people travel no matter why, because they're constantly under people in the Balkans were constantly in wars, constantly under section economic problems, different things. So they don't regard pandemics a problem, so it's resistance.
Is there really a contradiction between his experience and your analysis?
Well, there's not a contradiction in the sense that, Serbian people are Western-oriented in sense. As I mentioned also during my presentation, geographically, Serbia, belongs to the Western Hemisphere. So in that sense, they are Western-oriented, but then again, also tapping into fear of bad memories, thinking of the 99 bombing, the NATO bombing, thinking about the sanctions. I was born in the Netherlands, but I remember that when I went to visit my family, there were sanctions, and I was a child, and it was very strange to experience that as well. So it brought me fear as well during that time. So this is something I think very important also to recognize within people. So when you talk to Serbian people on the ground, they are positive in the sense that, you know, they are pro-European, but this fear behind and why they sometimes idealize Russia as this savior has to do with continuously the struggle against foreign suppressors. So, and this is historically from a very long time. So that's something, when you talk a bit deeper with people, it's something they will actually tell you about. But I would say most Serbian people are pro-Europe in that sense. So I don't see in that sense a contradiction.
Thank you. I would like to end the morning session, give you a lunch break, which is perhaps a bit shorter than you will see over here, Ton, because this afternoon there are even more speakers. Would it be possible for you to be back at 1:30? What did I say? At 1:30. Yeah, is that okay? 1:30. So not 13:40, but 13:30. Thank you very much. Thank you also for your contribution. Ja, bedankt.